The sun hangs high, spilling golden light over the sea of black caps and flowing gowns. The air buzzes with laughter and chatter, friends hugging, parents snapping photos, the excited hum of a day meant to celebrate beginnings. But there, standing apart from all of it, is Maria, 25 years old, clad not in silk or mortarboard, but in crisp, authoritative military uniform. The medals on her chest catch the sunlight, like quiet promises of battles fought and victories earned. Around her, classmates toss their caps, their voices rising in joyful noise. Some glance her way, curiosity flickering, but most quickly turn back to their own celebrations. The college plans, the parties, the dreams of summer, all unfolding in a rhythm Maria no longer moves to. Her path diverged long ago, carved out with discipline, sacrifice, and an unyielding sense of duty. She catches sight of her family in the crowd, faces bright with pride, yet oddly distant. They wave, but their eyes seem lost in the crowd, unaware of how much this moment means to her, not just as a graduate, but as someone who returned to claim a milestone they never thought she'd reach this way. The principal steps to the podium, his voice steady and warm as he begins the opening speech. Words about growth, future, and the promise of youth float through the air, but Maria's mind drifts to a different journey, the one that led her here, standing alone among a sea of familiar faces and unfamiliar expectations. She remembers the long nights away from home, the early mornings in the barracks, the weight of responsibility heavier than any cap or gown could ever be. The sacrifices she made, the missed birthdays, the silent phone calls home, the moments when doubt crept in, whispering that maybe this was too much to ask of herself. Around her, laughter continues, but it feels miles away. The jokes, the cheers, the hopeful chatter, they blend into a distant echo beneath the steady beat of her own heart. Pride and anxiety wrestle within her, a quiet storm. She is proud to wear this uniform, proud to have served, but anxious too, about how she is seen, about the gulf between who she is and who they think she should be. She wonders if they see her at all, not just the uniform or the medals, but the person, the girl who once sat in those same classrooms, who dreamed just as wildly, who fought just as fiercely. As the principal's words fade into the background, Maria straightens her posture. She breathes in the sunlight, the warmth on her face, the weight of the moment settling deep inside her. Today is not just a ceremony, it's a declaration, a statement that her path, though different, is no less worthy. Before we jump back in, tell me, where are you tuning in from? And if this story touches you, if you see a bit of your own journey here, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. A moment of reflection. The ceremony droned on, the applause and chatter blending into a distant hum. But inside my mind, everything sharpened. I wasn't just sitting there in my uniform, listening to names being called. I was somewhere else, somewhere I had been countless times before. I remembered the day I enlisted, the surge of pride as I signed the papers, the weight of the uniform settling around me like a promise. I was young, yes, but determined. Determined to prove that where I came from didn't define where I could go. I thought about that moment over and over, the feeling that I was stepping into a future I would shape with my own hands. The memories came rushing back, unbidden. The early mornings, the grueling drills that pushed my body to its limits, the moments when I wanted to give up but didn't. When sweat and pain were the only things I knew, but so was the fire inside me. I remembered the camaraderie, the friendships forged in shared struggle, where silence said more than words could. Those late nights talking under starry skies, where we dreamed of more than just surviving, we dreamed of rising. But with every flash of those memories came the ache of sacrifice. The distance from my family, the missed birthdays, the quiet holidays alone. The phone calls I had to cut short because duty came first. The loneliness that sometimes crept in when I thought no one was watching. The sacrifices that went unnoticed by those who laughed and whispered during this very moment. Their laughter echoed in the background now, sharp and bitter, like a reminder of everything I had missed. They laughed at the uniform, at the stories they didn't know, at the path I chose. It stung. Not because I doubted myself, but because I wished they could see beyond the surface. See the years of discipline, the nights of doubt, the strength it took to get here. As each name was called, I sat motionless, my heart heavy with unspoken words. I wanted to tell them everything. About the mornings before dawn, the endless training, the moments when I questioned if I could keep going but pushed forward anyway. I wanted to share the pride I felt in every badge, every stripe earned through blood and sweat. But fear held me back. The fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, of standing alone in a sea of faces that only saw the uniform and not the person beneath. I thought about my family, about how proud they must be even if they couldn't be here today, about the sacrifices they made too, quietly rooting for me from miles away. I wanted to shout their names, to honor the roots that gave me strength, but the weight of expectation kept my voice silent. Then came the moment, the principal's voice cutting through the murmurs. General Maria Rodriguez. The crowd erupted, a wave of applause and cheers crashing over me. Yet, in that moment, I felt more isolated than ever. The noise was loud, but it didn't reach me. It was the sound of surprise, of disbelief, of people grappling with the reality that the girl they thought they knew had become something they never expected. I stood, steady and composed, the uniform crisp against my skin. I walked across the stage, each step a testament to the journey that brought me here. But inside, I carried the weight of every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, every laugh that wasn't meant for me. This was my story. Not the one whispered in the hallways, not the one judged behind closed doors. My story was etched in every scar, every early morning, every night spent dreaming of this day. And though the crowd's laughter had tried to diminish me, the helicopter that landed moments later would speak louder than any doubt. It was a symbol, not just of arrival, but of recognition, of a journey that transcended stereotypes and expectations. Today, I wasn't just a graduate, I was a general, and I was here to report. But for now, as the applause washed over me, I held my silence. Because sometimes, the loudest stories are told in the quiet moments of reflection. Receiving the diploma, the spotlight found her first, sharp and unyielding, cutting through the dim auditorium like a blade. Maria stepped forward, her boots clicking steadily against the polished stage floor. Every eye was on her, but the sound she heard most clearly wasn't the applause or the murmurs of the crowd. It was the laughter. That cruel, dismissive laughter that had followed her since the moment she walked into that school wearing her military uniform, a symbol of discipline and dreams far bigger than the halls around her. The laughter echoed louder now, ricocheting off the walls, bouncing back into her ears like a relentless tide. Some classmates whispered behind cupped hands. Others pointed with smirks curling their lips. Their eyes seemed to say, "Who does she think she is?" The girl in uniform, standing taller than the rest, too proud, too different. Maria's heart pounded, a fierce drum beneath her chest, mixing with the cold rush of apprehension. But she didn't falter. She held her head high, chin lifted with a quiet defiance that burned brighter than the spotlight. The principal waited at the edge of the stage, diploma in hand, a practiced smile on his lips. Maria approached with steady steps, each one a testament to the battles she'd already fought. As their hands met, the grip was firm and respectful. The principal's eyes held a flicker of something. Maybe surprise, maybe approval, but it was fleeting. She accepted the diploma, the paper crisp and heavy in her hands, the tangible proof of years of hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. But the warmth of that moment was snatched away by the coldness of the room. The laughter swelled again, louder now, a wave crashing against her resolve. Some classmates leaned closer, whispering venomous doubts. Their words didn't reach her ears clearly, but their intentions were unmistakable. They didn't see a future leader. They saw a target for ridicule, a girl who dared to dream beyond the limits they had set for her. Maria turned slowly, the weight of their judgment pressing down on her like a physical force. She felt the sting of their eyes, the sharpness of their sneers. Yet, in that moment, she made a choice. She would not shrink, She would not let their mockery define her. She squared her shoulders, lifted her gaze, and faced them all. The laughter faltered, uncertain now, as if sensing the shift in the air. The girl they had laughed at was not broken, she was becoming unstoppable. The moment was bittersweet, pride and pain intertwined like threads in a tapestry woven from adversity. Maria stepped off the stage, diploma clutched tightly, her mind already racing ahead. She vowed then to turn their laughter into fuel, to transform their doubt into motivation. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a journey that would take her far beyond the narrow confines of that auditorium. One day she would return, not as the girl they laughed at, but as the General Maria they never saw coming. And when that day arrived, the laughter would die on their tongues, replaced by respect. Until then, she would carry this moment with her, a reminder of where she started and how far she was destined to go. The aftermath of laughter. The crowd begins to disperse, the formal ceremony fading into a buzz of laughter and chatter. Graduates exchange hugs, slaps on the back, and plans for the future. I stand apart, my uniform crisp, medals gleaming faintly in the afternoon sun. The celebration swirls around me, but I'm not part of it. Not really. I watch as my classmates revel in their achievements, their voices high with excitement and relief. Snippets of conversation drift my way, uninvited and sharp. Can you believe Maria? Military? Like she's some kind of soldier or something. She's always been so serious. Guess she wants to be a general or something. Who does that? She's probably just trying to be different. Weird, honestly. The laughter that follows is light, but it stings deeper than I expect. I clutch my hands at my sides, steadying myself against the sudden rush of old doubts. Why did I choose this path? The question echoes, but I push it down. I'm not the same girl they knew back then. I step closer to the group. Their laughter dies down as I approach, surprise flickering across their faces. They weren't expecting me. General Maria, standing tall and proud in my dress uniform, the emblem of my country shining on my chest. Hey, I say, my voice calm but firm. I heard what you said. The words hang between us, heavy and undeniable. They shuffle awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. One of them mutters, "We didn't mean anything by it." I shake my head, not angry, just resolute. That's the thing. You did mean something by it. You meant to make me small, to keep me in some box where I'm not allowed to dream bigger than this town, bigger than your expectations. I pause, letting that sink in. But I chose this. I chose to serve, to protect, to lead, and I'm proud of it. A silence falls. Curiosity replaces the mocking sneers. I can see it in their eyes, a flicker of something new, something they didn't expect. You think it's easy? I ask, waking up every day knowing that what you do could make the difference between life and death? That you carry the weight of people who count on you? It's not just a uniform or a title, it's a commitment. They listen, really listen. I wasn't always the strong one, I continue. I was just like you, unsure, scared of what others thought. But I realized that the only way to silence the laughter was to prove them wrong, not with anger, but with action, with honor. One of them finally speaks. So what's it really like, being you? I smile softly, the pride shining through. It's hard, it's demanding, but it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Every mission, every challenge, every early morning or late night, it's a chance to serve something bigger than myself. They nod slowly, the walls they built crumbling. And the helicopter? Someone asks quietly. I chuckle. That was a message. A reminder that dreams don't have to stay on the ground, that we can rise above the doubts and laughter. The group grows quieter, their laughter replaced with reflection. I realize then that this moment, this conversation is my true victory. I don't need them to cheer, I don't need their approval. I only need to show them who I am, one conversation at a time. Because if I can change one mind, change one heart, then maybe, just maybe, the laughter will fade into respect. I straighten my shoulders and look around. The future stretches wide and uncertain, but I am ready, ready to lead, ready to inspire, ready to be the general I was always meant to be. And as I walk away, the weight of their stares feels lighter. not because I fear them less, but because I know who I am. I am Maria, I am a soldier, I am a leader, and I am proud. The laughter? It's just noise now, background static to the sound of my own steady heartbeat, marching forward into what's next. An unexpected arrival. The afternoon sun warmed the courtyard where the graduation celebration had spilled over from the auditorium. I stood among familiar faces, my military uniform crisp, my medals catching the light. The laughter around me was easy, teasing, some good-natured, some less so. I heard the whispers, the sideways glances. They still saw me as the girl who left town, the one who chased a dream that seemed too big, the one who wasn't just one of us anymore. I smiled politely, answering questions, sharing stories about life away from here. I spoke about leadership, discipline, the honor of wearing the uniform. Some listened, some rolled their eyes. But I kept talking. I wanted them to understand, to see the person I had become. Then, without warning, a distant thrum cut through the chatter. Heads turned, eyes squinted toward the sky. The sound grew louder, steady, commanding. Helicopter blades sliced through the air, a rhythmic pulse that quickened every heartbeat in the crowd. The celebration faltered, laughter died on lips, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Everyone watched, breath caught, as a military helicopter appeared on the horizon. It descended with authority, casting a long, dark shadow over the gathering. The blades whipped the air into a frenzy, sending ribbons and papers swirling like leaves in a storm. Gasps rippled through the crowd, murmurs spread like wildfire. Is that? No way. Why here? I froze, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I knew that helicopter. Every line, every emblem. It was a symbol of everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed. The helicopter settled into a smooth, controlled landing just yards from where we stood. The rotors slowed, the noise fading to a distant hum, but the energy in the air remained electric, charged with disbelief and awe. The crowd's eyes were no longer filled with skepticism. The laughter that had once echoed around me was replaced by a heavy silence, thick with newfound respect. From the open side door, a figure emerged, another soldier, sharp and steady in stance. Then, from the cockpit, I stepped out. General Maria, in full uniform, standing tall. I looked around, meeting the eyes of my classmates, some wide with surprise, others guarded but curious. Their perceptions of me, the girl they thought they knew, were shifting beneath their feet. I lifted my chin, let the weight of the moment settle over me. This was more than a visit home. This was a declaration. I spoke, my voice steady, carrying across the hush. General Maria reporting. The words hung in the air. Some faces softened, respect blooming in their eyes. Others nodded slowly, absorbing the reality of the woman before them. I could feel the tide turning, the walls of doubt breaking down. For years I had been chasing a dream that seemed too distant, too impossible for the girl from this small town. Today those doubts were fading. Today I was more than just a memory or a rumor. I was proof. Proof that perseverance matters. That commitment shapes destiny. That laughter born from disbelief can turn into applause born from respect. As I stood there, beneath the rotor blade's fading hum, I felt a surge of pride, a fierce, unshakable pride that no sneer or whisper could ever diminish. This was my moment. And from now on, when they thought of me, it wouldn't be as the girl who left and failed. It would be as the woman who returned, strong, accomplished, and unstoppable. The helicopter's shadow still lingered, but now it was a shield, a spotlight, a beacon. And I was ready. General Maria, welcome home, someone whispered. I smiled, knowing that the journey was just beginning. General Maria reporting. The dull murmur of the crowd faded into an uneasy silence as the helicopter's rotor blades slowed, slicing through the afternoon air with a last, heavy thump. The noise died away completely, leaving only the steady hum of anticipation. Then, with a hiss, the doors slid open. out stepped a figure whose presence instantly commanded the attention of every person gathered. General Maria. Her uniform was immaculate, every medal and insignia gleaming with quiet authority. She moved with a deliberate grace, a proud smile tugging at the corners of her lips, smiling not just at the crowd, but at one person in particular. The crowd, previously buzzing with laughter and whispers, was stunned into silence. The air shifted, thickening with a sudden sense of gravity. Eyes that had been rolling in derision now widened, mouths closed in surprise. The laughter that had once felt like a weight against Maria's back evaporated like mist. General Maria began to walk forward, her boots steady and sure on the pavement. She approached the young woman standing among the graduates, Maria herself, who now stood taller, chest forward, shoulders squared. The pride in the general's eyes was unmistakable. Without hesitation, the general raised her hand in a crisp salute. Maria returned it, her own hand steady, though her heart pounded fiercely beneath her uniform. This moment was more than a gesture. It was a profound recognition, a silent acknowledgement of a journey few had understood until now. The general's voice, calm and commanding, broke the silence. To those gathered here today, I ask you to listen closely. Bravery is not born from applause or easy days. It is forged in quiet sacrifices, in the resolve to stand when others falter. Dedication is not a word, but a lifetime of choices. Choices to serve something greater than oneself. She paused, letting her words sink in. The graduates, parents, and faculty watched with rapt attention, the earlier mockery replaced by a dawning respect. The general's gaze returned to Maria. Maria, your commitment has been unwavering. Your service, marked by courage and honor, is an inspiration to us all. Maria felt the weight of those words settle over her like a mantle. The laughter that once echoed in her ears was replaced by a profound silence filled with understanding. The classmates who had once dismissed her now saw her with new eyes. Eyes that recognized the sacrifices she had made, the battles she had fought, and the strength that had carried her through. The general continued, her tone steady and sincere. This journey is never easy. It demands everything, time, strength, sometimes even the hope of those who love us. But it is a path worth walking. Because in service we find not only purpose, but a bond that unites us, a family forged by shared trials and unwavering loyalty. Maria stood beside her, feeling a surge of pride mingled with humility. This was the moment her story changed. Not through words she had spoken, but through the undeniable truth reflected in the eyes of a leader who had walked the path before her. The crowd's energy transformed. Whispers of admiration rippled through the air. The faces that once carried smirks now bore expressions of awe and newfound respect. The laughter was gone, replaced by a solemn recognition of what it truly means to serve. The general's final words settled over the gathering like a benediction. Remember this day. Remember what it means to stand firm in the face of doubt, to rise beyond the judgment of others, and to pursue a purpose greater than oneself. Maria's journey is a beacon to us all. A slow, steady applause began, growing in strength and conviction. It was not the shallow clapping of polite ceremony, but the heartfelt acknowledgement of a story lived and a commitment honored. Maria looked out at the crowd, her eyes meeting those of her former classmates. In their gaze, she saw a shift, not just in how they saw her, but in how they understood what it truly means to be brave. The helicopter's blades began to turn again, rising into the sky as the crowd's applause echoed around the courtyard. But Maria remained rooted in place, standing tall beside the general. This moment, this recognition, was a turning point. A clear line drawn between the girl they had laughed at and the woman she had become. As the helicopter disappeared into the horizon, the silence that followed was no longer heavy with doubt. It was filled with the quiet strength of respect earned and a future rewritten. Maria's story had been transformed that day, not by fate, but by the unwavering courage to embrace her purpose, and the unexpected arrival of a general who came to say simply, "I see you." And in that recognition, the laughter ended forever. Shifting perspectives. The laughter that once echoed through the crowded gymnasium had all but vanished. What remained was an intense silence, broken only by the steady, commanding voice of the general standing before them. Her words cut through the tension like a blade, sharp and unwavering. 25 years ago, I stood where you are now. I was that girl, the one they laughed at, the one they didn't believe in. But today, I stand here not just as a graduate, but as a general who has served her country with honor. There was a subtle shift in the room, an almost imperceptible change in the energy that hung between the rows of seats. The faces that had mocked just moments ago now looked up with something new: curiosity, respect, even awe. She continued, her voice steady and clear. I want to tell you a story about what it truly means to serve. About the moments when fear is your companion and courage is your choice. About the sacrifices that no one sees, the quiet battles fought far from home. Maria felt her chest swell. The uniform she wore felt heavier somehow, not with burden, but with purpose. Every medal, every stripe, every stitch told a story of commitment, of nights spent awake, of friends lost, of missions completed against impossible odds. I remember a mission deep in the mountains of a distant land, the general said. Our unit was outnumbered, surrounded by danger on all sides. We faced impossible odds, but we stood firm because we knew what was at stake. Not glory, not fame, but the lives of the people we swore to protect. The crowd was silent now, the mocking laughter replaced by a silence thick with reflection. Maria's eyes scanned the room, catching glimpses of classmates who had once dismissed her as a joke. Their expressions were softened, their eyes fixed on her with newfound understanding. Duty, the general said, is not a word to be taken lightly. It is a promise made in the quiet moments, when no one is watching. It is the strength to do what is right, even when it costs you everything. Maria felt her heart pound. The stories of heroism, of resilience, of unwavering commitment. Each one was a thread weaving a tapestry of honor that stretched far beyond personal achievement. It was a legacy, a calling. She spoke of the long nights spent comforting families of fallen comrades, of the relentless training that tested every limit, of the bonds forged in the crucible of adversity. Each tale was a testament to the weight of the choices she had made, the path she had walked. And yes, her voice softened, there were times when I doubted myself. When the laughter, the sneers, the disbelief felt like a weight too heavy to bear. But I learned that honor comes from within. It is not the applause of the crowd, but the quiet conviction in your own heart that defines you. The room seemed to breathe with her words. The laughter that had once filled the air was replaced by a reverent stillness. Maria's classmates began to see her not as the girl who had once been mocked, but as a woman who had risen above it all. She could feel their eyes on her, their judgments shifting like shadows in the light. The barriers built by ignorance and fear were crumbling, replaced by bridges of empathy and respect. You may not understand my journey now, the general said, but I promise you this. When you stand for something greater than yourself, when you choose courage over comfort, you create a legacy that no laughter can diminish. Maria's voice caught for a moment, her pride swelling until it threatened to spill over. She was no longer the girl who had been the subject of ridicule. She was a leader, a symbol of strength and perseverance. As the final words left her lips, the crowd erupted, not with laughter, but with applause. It was a sound filled with respect, with admiration, with recognition. The very people who had once mocked her now celebrated her. In that moment, Maria realized something profound. The laughter had never truly been about her. It was about fear, fear of the unknown, fear of difference, fear of the path less traveled. But her stories had illuminated a new truth. Honor was not a prize handed out by others. It was a quiet flame burning inside, fueled by conviction and courage. And when she embraced that flame fully, nothing could extinguish it. She stood tall, her uniform a symbol of every trial she had overcome. The helicopter that had landed moments before was not just a spectacle. It was a testament to the journey from doubt to dignity. The crowd's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw not mockery but understanding, not judgment but respect, not distance but connection. The general's voice softened as she concluded, I am Maria, I am a soldier. I am a leader. And I am proof that the weight of your choices, no matter how heavy, can lift you higher than you ever imagined. Maria's heart beat with a fierce pride. She was no longer hiding, no longer shrinking to fit the expectations of others. She was whole, unshakable, empowered. As the applause washed over her, she knew one thing for certain. The journey ahead would not be easy, but she was ready. Ready to carry the torch of honor, to lead with courage, and to inspire others to stand tall in the face of doubt. Because sometimes, the greatest victories are not won on the battlefield, but in the hearts of those who dare to believe in themselves when no one else does. And in that moment, as the helicopter's blades slowed and the crowd's cheers echoed, Maria embraced her identity fully. A general. A hero. A woman who had turned laughter into legacy. The power of connection. The applause had barely faded when footsteps approached. Slow, hesitant at first, then more certain. Former classmates, faces I had known since childhood, now lined up in front of me. Their eyes held something new, not mockery, but something softer. Regret, maybe. Admiration, definitely. One of them, someone who had laughed the hardest that day, cleared his throat and said, "General Maria, I didn't get it before. I see now how wrong we were. You've done incredible things." Another nodded, adding, "It's not just what you've done, it's how you did it. You never gave up on yourself, even when we laughed." I smiled, the tension easing from my shoulders. Years ago, if they had approached me like this, I might have turned away. But now, I understood the power of connection. I understood the value in being vulnerable, in sharing the real story behind the uniform. "I appreciate that," I said. It wasn't easy. There were days I doubted myself, days I felt alone, but I held on to what I believed in: discipline, honor, and the hope that one day I could prove my worth. They listened, really listened. And when I spoke about the challenges I faced, balancing family, training, and the weight of expectations, their expressions softened. Some shared their own struggles, their own doubts and dreams. One classmate, a quiet girl who had always been overshadowed by others, spoke up. "I always wanted to do something meaningful. I guess I was scared to step outside what people expected. Hearing your story makes me think maybe I can try." Another chimed in, "I'm studying to be a teacher now, but I've never told anyone how much I wanted to work with kids who felt lost like I was." The conversation deepened, weaving through hopes and fears. We talked about the masks we wore in high school, the judgments, the assumptions, and how those masks had kept us apart, blind to each other's true selves. I shared how joining the military wasn't just about career or honor. It was about finding a family, a purpose, about learning to trust others and, most importantly, trusting myself. They nodded, some with tears glistening. "We were so focused on appearances," one said, "that we never saw the person beneath." The atmosphere shifted. What started as awkward apologies became genuine connection. Laughter returned, but this time it was different. Warm, inclusive, free of judgment. We joked about old memories, the silly nicknames, the times we messed up. But beneath the laughter was respect, a bond forged not by shared history alone, but by honesty and openness. "I never thought I'd say this," one friend admitted, "but I'm proud of you, proud to have known you." I felt a swell of gratitude, not for the praise, but for the bridge we were building right there, among the echoes of past doubts. It was clear now, vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the key to connection, to breaking down walls that had kept us strangers for so long. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow over the gathering, I realized something profound. The same place that once echoed with laughter meant to tear me down had become a space for rebuilding, for understanding. "We all have our battles," I said softly, "and sometimes the hardest one is letting others see us as we really are." Heads nodded in agreement. One by one, they shared their own journeys, stories of fear turned to courage, of judgment replaced by empathy. In that moment, I knew the helicopter wasn't just a symbol of my journey. It was a reminder that every person carries a story worth hearing, that beneath the surface, we all seek the same thing: connection. And just like that, The past and present collided, not in conflict, but in harmony. The laughter wasn't gone. It filled the air once more, richer now, woven with the threads of friendship and newfound respect. In their eyes, I saw not the girl they once doubted, but a woman they could look up to, not because of the rank on my uniform, but because of the courage it took to stand tall, to be real. Together, we celebrated not just my journey, but the journey we all shared. Because sometimes, it's in the moments we least expect that the power of connection reveals itself. And when it does, everything changes. Facing the past. Even as the laughter from years ago echoed faintly in my mind, something had shifted. The crowd around me, once distant and dismissive, had softened. Camaraderie, born from shared memories and mutual respect, wrapped around us like a gentle tide. But then, amidst the warmth, a familiar figure approached, someone whose face had once been a mask of scorn. She stopped just a few feet away. I recognized her instantly, the girl who had been particularly harsh, the one whose words had cut deeper than any blade. Her eyes searched mine, no longer sharp or mocking, but heavy with something else. Remorse. She hesitated, then spoke, voice low and tentative. "Maria, I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time." I nodded, silent but attentive. "I know I was cruel back then. I didn't understand you. I didn't see the strength beneath your silence, the fire behind your eyes." She swallowed hard. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Her apology hung in the air, fragile and sincere. My heart thudded with a mix of surprise and old wounds tugging at the edges. Part of me wanted to turn away, to shield myself from the past's sting. But another part, a stronger part, I recognized in myself now, whispered that this was a moment worth facing. "Thank you," I said quietly. "That means more than you know." She nodded, relief washing over her features. "I wish I could take back the things I said, the laughter, the cruelty. I was afraid, I think. Afraid of what you represented, someone different, someone who dared to dream beyond our small town." I considered her words. Fear. It had driven many to lash out, to build walls instead of bridges. "Words have power," I replied. "They can build you up, or tear you down." Back then, I felt like every word was a weight, pushing me under. Quote. She looked down, ashamed. "I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." "You weren't the only one hurting," I admitted. "But that's the thing. People change. We grow. We learn to see beyond the surface." She looked up, eyes searching mine again, this time with hope. "Do you think you can forgive me?" I paused. Forgiveness isn't easy. It's not about forgetting or excusing the pain, but about releasing it, refusing to carry the burden any longer. "I forgive you," I said, voice steady. "Because holding on to anger won't change the past. But understanding, that can change the future." She smiled, small but genuine. "Thank you, Maria, for your strength. For showing me what courage really looks like." In that moment, I felt an unexpected lightness. The past, with all its scars, no longer weighed me down. Instead, it became a foundation, a testament to resilience and transformation. We talked longer then, about dreams and challenges, about how the world outside our high school walls was bigger and more complex than either of us had imagined. I shared stories from my military journey, the discipline, the hardships, the victories. She listened, genuinely interested, her earlier judgments replaced by admiration. "I never thought you'd become a general," she said, shaking her head in disbelief. "I guess I underestimated you." "Maybe you underestimated yourself too," I replied. "It's easy to judge others when you're afraid of your own potential." The conversation turned into a lesson for both of us, a lesson in vulnerability, in the courage to face uncomfortable truths. She confessed her own struggles, her regrets, and I shared how I learned to stand tall despite the doubts and laughter that once surrounded me. "It's funny," I said. "At our graduation, they laughed when I walked in. But then the helicopter landed. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. They saw me differently. Not just as the girl they mocked, but as someone who had earned her place." She nodded thoughtfully. That moment changed everything. It showed us that people can rise above their beginnings, that strength isn't always loud. It's often quiet, steady, and unwavering. "Yes," I agreed. And it's not just about proving others wrong. It's about proving ourselves right, about knowing who we are and what we're capable of. The past and present collided in that conversation, weaving a tapestry of understanding. I realized that forgiveness wasn't a gift I was giving her. It was a gift to myself, a way to close a chapter not with bitterness, but with grace. As we parted ways, I felt empowered, not because I was a general or because I'd arrived in a helicopter to silence the doubts of my youth, but because I had embraced my story fully. Flaws, pain, growth, and all. I had faced the past, and in doing so, I had claimed my future. The laughter from years ago was no longer a shadow but a backdrop, a reminder of how far I had come. And now, standing tall in my uniform, I carried not just medals and ranks, but the resilience that had been forged in every moment of struggle and forgiveness. Because true strength isn't just about commanding respect, it's about having the courage to face those who doubted you, to listen, to forgive, and to grow. And that is the report I carry with me, always. General Maria, signing off. The celebration continues. The laughter that once echoed with mockery now rolled around us like a warm breeze. The tension that had hung thick in the air evaporated as if the helicopter's blades had swept it away. Suddenly, the celebration was no longer about awkward glances or whispered judgments. It was a party. A real one. I stood there, in my military uniform, 25 years old, surrounded by faces I had once thought impossible to connect with. The same classmates who had laughed at my dreams, at my ambitions, now looked at me differently. Their eyes held something new: respect, curiosity, maybe even a little awe. General Maria reporting, I joked, a smile tugging at my lips. The words felt lighter now, less like a challenge and more like a shared secret between us. The helicopter wasn't just a vehicle, it was a symbol, a bridge that closed the distance between who I was and who they thought I could be. The crowd shifted closer. Stories spilled out. Laughter bubbled up. Someone nudged me, grinning. So, what's it really like up there? Flying a helicopter, I mean? I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough to draw them in. It's quiet up there, except for the blades. You see the world differently. Small problems look tiny. Big dreams, they look like destinations you can reach. A few exchanged glances, nodding. Suddenly my stories weren't just mine, they belonged to all of us. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by a shared curiosity about the roads we each traveled. I talked about discipline, about the long nights and early mornings. I shared moments of doubt, too, the times I questioned if I belonged anywhere. But I always came back to the mission, to the belief that our paths, no matter how different, were worthy. Someone laughed and said, I never thought I'd say this, but you make military life sound kind of cool. I laughed, the sound genuine and easy. Cool? It's more than that. It's about finding strength in who you are, even when no one else sees it at first. Cameras clicked. Phones raised. We gathered together, a motley crew of former skeptics and the girl they once doubted. The shutter sounds felt like the beat of a new rhythm, one of acceptance, of belonging. As we posed, I felt it, a warmth spreading through me. The laughter that once stung now wrapped around me like a blanket. I wasn't just the girl in uniform. I was part of something bigger, a community that had shifted and grown, just like I had. One of my old classmates, someone who had never spoken to me before, said quietly, You've changed the way I think about things, about what's possible. I smiled, the weight of those words settling deep inside. It wasn't just about me. It was about every one of us daring to walk our own path, regardless of the expectations we'd been handed. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The celebration slowed, but the unity stayed. We stood together not just as graduates, but as people who had shared a moment that changed everything. Here's to the journey, I said, raising an imaginary glass. To the paths we choose, and to the bonds we build along the way. And that day, beneath a sky that had witnessed our laughter and tears, we were no longer divided by doubt or fear. We were united in a celebration of who we had become, and who we were still becoming. The helicopter's roar faded into the evening air, but its impact lingered. It had turned a day of judgment into a day of joy. A day where laughter was no longer a weapon, but a bridge, connecting hearts and opening doors. I looked around at the faces glowing with smiles, and knew this was a moment none of us would ever forget. The celebration wasn't just about the past. It was about the future we would face together, stronger and more certain than ever. Because sometimes, it takes a helicopter landing to remind us all that greatness can come from the places we least expect, and that every journey, no matter how hard, is worth celebrating. Looking ahead, the sun dips low, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The crowd around me buzzes with the energy of new beginnings. Hushed whispers of colleges, dreams of careers, and the bright hope of futures unfolding. They laugh and chatter, their voices rising and falling like waves, eager to embrace the next chapter. But I stand apart, rooted in a stillness that feels both heavy and light. I watch my classmates, their faces glowing with anticipation. They speak of paths mapped out by family expectations, by scholarships earned, by passions discovered in late-night study sessions or summer jobs. I hear the names of universities, the lists of majors, the plans for internships and travel. It's a world of possibilities, and they belong to it, just as surely as I once believed I did. But my path is different. I feel it in my bones, the steady pulse of commitment, the weight of discipline, earned through years of training and sacrifice. I am no longer the girl who walked across this stage to the sound of laughter, the girl whose dreams were dismissed and ridiculed. I am General Maria now, a woman forged by fire and dedication, a leader who commands not just respect, but the trust of those who follow. The helicopter's blades are silent in my memory, but the moment they cut through the sky remains vivid. It wasn't just a dramatic entrance. It was a declaration. A promise that I had arrived, not by chance or luck, but by relentless determination. The laughter that once echoed around me has transformed. It no longer stings, but sings. It is a melody of hope, a chorus that acknowledges the impossible made real. I think back to that day, the moment when the crowd's doubt met the roar of those engines. How they watched, mouths open, as I stepped down, uniform crisp, bearing the insignia earned through years of service. They saw then what I always knew, that my journey was not defined by their skepticism, but by my unwavering resolve. That moment was a turning point, not just for them, but for me. Now standing here in the twilight, I feel a quiet clarity. The path I've chosen is not easy. It demands sacrifice, resilience, and a strength that must be renewed every day. But it is mine. It carries the weight of purpose, the honor of service, and the promise of something greater than myself. I remember the faces of those I have led, the soldiers who looked to me in moments of fear and doubt, who found courage in the steadiness of my voice. The bonds forged in the crucible of challenge are stronger than any diploma or title. They have shaped me into a leader, a woman who stands ready to face whatever lies ahead. The laughter drifts again, soft and distant. It no longer mocks but celebrates. It is the sound of a future embraced, of barriers broken and expectations surpassed. And I am proud. Proud not just of what I have become, but of the road that brought me here, twists and turns, setbacks and victories alike. I know the journey will continue. There will be new challenges, new battles to fight, both within and without. But I carry with me the strength of every step taken, the lessons learned in moments of doubt and triumph. I am ready. As the last light fades and stars begin to twinkle above, I make a silent vow to lead with integrity, to inspire with conviction, and to never forget the girl who once stood alone, laughed at, and yet never stopped believing. General Maria reporting. Mission accepted, future secured. A new chapter. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a gentle golden glow over the field where the graduation ceremony had unfolded hours before. The crowd had thinned, the cheers had faded, and the once bustling energy had softened into a quiet warmth. Amid the scattered caps and gowns, Maria stood tall in her military uniform, a striking contrast to the casual attire of her classmates. The fabric clung to her, with the weight of years of discipline and sacrifice, a symbol of her journey that had only just begun. Her classmates surrounded her now, their faces alight with smiles, some still caught in the afterglow of the day's surprising events. They pulled her into embraces, one after another, each hug a silent acknowledgement of the battles fought, the doubts overcome, and the barriers broken. The laughter that had once been tinged with disbelief now rang with genuine joy and respect. They didn't just see Maria as the girl who arrived in uniform. They saw her as a leader, a trailblazer, a friend. "Promise you'll keep in touch," someone said, their voice thick with emotion. Maria nodded, her eyes shining. "I will. You all have a place in my story." The words felt heavy and light at once. Heavy with the truth of what she had endured, light with the hope of what was yet to come. She squeezed their hands, memorizing the warmth, the connection. These moments were more than just goodbyes. They were the threads weaving together the fabric of a shared past. She stepped back, allowing the circle to widen, her gaze sweeping over the faces she had grown up with. The teasing smirks and whispered doubts that once shadowed her presence were gone. In their place stood admiration and a quiet pride that mirrored her own. The day's extraordinary turn, the helicopter's arrival, the sudden transformation from outsider to hero, had reshaped more than just perceptions. It had rewritten the narrative of who she was. Maria adjusted the insignia on her chest, feeling the cold metal press against her heart. It was more than just decoration. It was a reminder of every early morning, every grueling exercise, every moment she had chosen to stand firm rather than step aside. The uniform was her armor, her identity, her truth laid bare. A gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying with it the faint scent of spring and the distant murmur of fading celebration. Maria inhaled deeply, letting the scent fill her lungs, steadying herself. Her journey was far from over, but this chapter, this moment, was hers to hold. She thought back to the laughter, the ridicule that once met her arrival on campus, the whispers questioning her, the doubts cast upon her dreams. They had laughed. They had underestimated her. But when the helicopter landed, when she stepped forward to greet the stunned crowd with a salute and the words, "General Maria reporting," everything changed. The laughter turned to silence, the silence to awe. That day became a turning point, not just for her but for everyone who witnessed it. It was a testament to the power of resilience and the impact of courage. Maria had transformed the impossible into the inevitable. Her heart swelled with a bittersweet mixture of pride and nostalgia. She had crossed the threshold from girlhood into a future defined by service, strength, and honor. The bonds forged here, in classrooms, on fields, amidst cheers and doubts, would carry her forward. They were the foundation upon which she would build the rest of her life. As the last of her classmates drifted away, Maria stood alone for a moment, the quiet settling around her like a cloak. She looked up at the sky, the fading light painting hues of pink and lavender across the horizon. The future stretched out before her, vast and unknown. But she was ready. With steady steps, she turned and began to walk toward that future, a future shaped by determination, shaped by the day they laughed, and the day a helicopter landed. In her heart, she carried the faces of those who had once doubted her, and now celebrated her. She carried the weight of her uniform and the promise it held. She carried the story of a girl who refused to be defined by others' expectations. And as she walked, Maria whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The echoes of the day's laughter and applause lingered in the air, a reminder that change is never easy but always possible. That sometimes, the most unexpected moments become the milestones we carry forever. She stepped forward with purpose, each footfall a testament to the journey that had brought her here, and the journey still unfolding. The path ahead was uncharted, but Maria was no longer the girl who arrived to laughter. She was General Maria, a name now etched in the hearts of those who witnessed her rise. And as the night embraced the earth, Maria moved into the future she had earned, strong, unyielding, and ready to lead. The future awaits. 25 years have passed since that day, my high school graduation, the day everyone laughed, the day they didn't believe, the day they thought I was just another girl dreaming too big. But that day, everything changed. Not because I shouted louder, or proved them wrong with words alone, no. It changed the moment the helicopter landed, the moment I stood tall and said, "General Maria reporting." Looking back, I understand now what I couldn't see then. Laughter isn't always cruelty. Sometimes it's disbelief. Sometimes it's a shield for the unexpected. They laughed because they didn't know what to expect. They laughed because I didn't fit their picture of who I was supposed to be. But the laughter wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something greater. That helicopter wasn't just a machine touching down on our school field. It was a symbol, a promise that the future waits for no one. It waits for those bold enough to step into it. And that day, I stepped into my future with a uniform, a name, and a purpose that no one could ignore. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness. Standing there, vulnerable to their stares and whispers, I found strength. Strength in knowing who I was and what I was meant to do. Strength in embracing my path, even when it was uncertain. It's the vulnerability I carried with me into every challenge after that day. And it's what connected me to others. Because when you show your true self, even the skeptics start to listen. I remember the faces, some in shock, some in awe, when I saluted and declared my rank. The same faces that had laughed moments before now held a different kind of respect. Respect born not from fear, but from realizing that stereotypes can be broken, barriers can be crossed, expectations can be rewritten. That moment was bigger than me. It was bigger than that graduation ceremony. It was a turning point, not just for my classmates, but for every young woman who dreams of a future where she is more than what society tells her she can be. I became a symbol of possibility, not just a story to be laughed at. Over the years, I've carried that day with me. It fuels my every decision. It reminds me that resilience is born from the moments when you feel most exposed. It reminds me that strength comes from embracing your true path, no matter how unconventional it may seem. Now, as I stand in this uniform, decades later, I see the future not as a distant dream, but as a canvas, waiting to be painted with courage and conviction. I know the power of a single moment, to change perceptions, to inspire others, to open doors that once seemed locked tight. I walk confidently into that future, knowing that my story is not just mine, it's the story of every person who's ever been doubted, laughed at, or underestimated. It's a testament to the power of persistence, of belief, and of daring to be different. My journey in the military has not been easy. It demanded sacrifice, discipline, and unwavering dedication. But it also gave me a platform to break stereotypes and to stand as proof that strength wears many faces. It gave me a voice to inspire others, to tell them that their dreams are valid, no matter how impossible they may seem. The laughter that once echoed in that auditorium has long since faded. In its place is a legacy of respect, a legacy I continue to build every day. And I know this: the future will always belong to those who refuse to be defined by others. So here I am, a general now, but still that girl who dared to dream big on her graduation day. I carry the memories of that moment with pride. Memories of laughter turned to respect, of vulnerability transformed into strength. The future awaits, and I am ready. Ready to face new challenges, to lead with courage, and to inspire others to do the same. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: the path you choose, no matter how uncertain, is yours to own. And when you own it, you become unstoppable. General Maria reporting. Always have, always will. Final thoughts. They remember the laughter. That quick, sharp burst of disbelief and mockery that echoed through the auditorium the moment I stepped onto the stage. They remember how the room filled with whispers and snickers, how their eyes flicked between me and the sky, expecting a joke, a stunt, or maybe a disaster. But what they didn't expect was the helicopter. It wasn't just any helicopter. It was a symbol, a statement, a call to attention that silenced every last one of them. When the rotors thundered overhead and the dust swirled around us, the laughter died. The air shifted. And suddenly, I wasn't just the girl they thought they knew. I was something more. I was a story unfolding in real time. Years later, I stand before you, not as a memory, not as a punchline, but as General Maria. The uniform I wear carries every moment of struggle, every ounce of determination, every step that led me from that high school stage to this place of honor. I want you to hear this. Every person in that crowd had a story. Every student, every teacher, every doubter, and every story is worth telling. You see, the laughter I faced that day wasn't just noise. It was a wall, a barrier built from fear, ignorance, and misunderstanding. But it was also a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down, daring me to prove them wrong. I didn't just walk through that wall. I broke it down, piece by piece, with courage and authenticity as my tools. It wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of expectation crushed me. Nights when the silence was louder than any applause. But through it all, I learned that true leadership isn't about perfection or approval. It's about showing up as you are, embracing your flaws, and standing firm in your truth. It's about inspiring others not by being flawless, but by being real. That graduation day wasn't just a ceremony, it was a turning point. A moment where the story shifted from the girl they laughed at to the leader they respect. The helicopter landing wasn't the climax. It was the beginning of something bigger. A movement toward understanding, acceptance, and empowerment. Now, when I hear that laughter in my mind, it's no longer isolation. It's transformed into a chorus of voices who have chosen to support rather than scorn, to listen rather than judge. We all have battles behind our smiles, victories hidden in our scars, and stories waiting to be shared. The question is, will we be brave enough to tell them? I hope my journey reminds you that no matter where you start, no matter how many times you're laughed at or doubted, your story matters. It deserves to be heard. It deserves respect. And it has the power to change lives, including your own. So as you step forward from this day, carry that with you. Lead with courage. Speak with authenticity. And don't be afraid to embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Because your story, just like mine, can be the spark that lights the way for others. Before we move on, I want to leave you with this. The moment when the world seemed to laugh at me, a helicopter arrived, turning doubt into awe and silence into respect. That day will live on, not just in my memory, but in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected moments can redefine everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us. Remember, every story has the power to inspire. Every voice deserves to be heard. And every one of you has something incredible to offer the world. So go ahead, embrace your story, lead with heart. And never forget that sometimes, the laughter is just the prelude to a triumphant arrival. General Maria, signing off.